Welcome to Shameless Leadership. I'm your host, Sarah Dean. This show is for women leaders who are committed to advancing both their own leadership and the leadership of those around them. In each episode, I offer practical strategies and inspiring stories to help you become a more confident, compassionate, and curious leader. The truth is, you were born to lead. So let's start now, together. Hello, Shameless Leaders. I'm so happy to be here with you today. I'm feeling extra excited because I'm recording this at 5 p.m. in the evening, and there's still full daylight. I feel like we've rounded a corner here. It's stormy and cold and wet in Seattle, but it's light out at 5 o'clock. So if you are in a place where it feels like there's hints of spring, I hope that is energizing and exciting to you because it feels real good in these gray parts of the country like Seattle. All right, so today we're going to be talking about building communication skills that help people trust you. And I always feel like I need to give this caveat, not because I think any of us would do unethical things, but when we're trying to build skills or practice skills to help people trust us, we're doing this because we want to be helpful to people, bring them along with us, and do what's best for them, not just what's best for us in terms of manipulating them with the trust that we build. So I always want to give that caveat. When we're looking at building these communication skills, we're looking at how can we build trust and safety for people so that in our leadership, when we are working collaboratively, when we are helping people grow in their strengths and in their talents, that they want to work alongside us, that they trust us enough to listen to the feedback that we have when that feedback is positive and when that feedback is maybe pointing out some things that need to be worked on and improved. In the last few weeks, I've been working with a number of new folks, a number of new coaching clients, which has been so fun. If you're one of those new coaching clients, oh my gosh, I just feel like I'm ending every day right now. So excited because I have a lot of new folks on my coaching calendar, and every single one, I feel like we get done with our first session and it's just like light bulbs have gone off and I can see the trajectory that we're on and the growth that's about to happen. And it feels really good and really exciting. And when I'm in the situation of having a lot of new coaching clients at once, I see a lot of the need for the same thing over and over again, which inspires podcast content for sure. So if you're one of those new coaching clients, this is especially for you all because this is a kind of piggybacking on some of the things that we're talking about in our one-on-one sessions. But this is also for anyone that's looking to sharpen some communication skills around how do we consistently engage with people in a way that builds trust and in a way that really invites people in so that people feel seen, heard, held, and valued, and that they want to be working alongside of us. And so when we're thinking about these communication habits, they're pretty simple, quick to integrate. Like you could start doing most, if not all these things tomorrow. Probably even do a few of them tonight or today, whenever you're listening to this. You could start doing these things right away. And they're little things that over time make a really big difference. Oftentimes we think that one good or bad communication moment is going to make or break a relationship. And that's really not true. One outstanding communication moment can build trust, and one horrendous communication can definitely break trust. But what we know over time is that it's what we do most frequently and what people recall from us most recently that is what people think we stand for. And so it's really the little things you do over time that build trust and hold trust. And what's great then is if you do make a mistake, if you do, if something happens and you have a bad day, you've built enough goodwill with those consistent habits that you can turn around and quickly say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I got that wrong. Like I'm having an off day. And people are generally really forgiving. People are able to and willing to give grace to those who are pretty consistent over time. And so this goes a really long way in terms of not needing to be perfect, because what people remember from us most frequently and most recently is the stuff that's the good stuff. So let's dig into what those good things are. What are those communication habits and skills that will help people build trust in you? And then we'll also spend some time talking about how these directly connect to that trust that we're building. So first, let's talk about what are the habits here. So we're going to talk about 7 different steps that you can take, 7 different skills and communication habits that you can get into your routine, into your repertoire. And if these are new to you, it's going to be just like a workout where it's going to feel maybe a little clunky and awkward. Like you got to start with the small dumbbells and then build it up. So start practicing in low stakes environments when you say things that are different than what you normally say, when you're practicing something that maybe feels like, oh, this doesn't feel like me quite yet. Let it be in a low stakes moment. Practice it with your partner, with your kids, with your like best friend, and then integrate it into those higher stakes situations. So the first thing is catching people when they're doing things right and then naming that specifically. So someone does something right and you acknowledge it. In fast-paced working environments, it's so easy to just notice mentally that someone got something right and maybe even have a lot of mental internal gratitude, like, oh, I'm so glad they got it right. But then forget to say something, forget to push pause and acknowledge that in that moment. So not just saying thanks in an email or not just having a passive moment of gratitude, but really telling someone thank you, letting them know why it mattered and letting them know exactly what it was that they did. So sending that email or catching them in the hallway and saying, thank you so much for doing this thing. It helped my job or it made my day easier by, for XYZ reason. So really connecting what it is that they did well and that positively impacted you and why that mattered to you in that moment. When we catch people doing great things, they're motivated to do more great things. So catching people doing great things. I actually have someone who was just recently, I'm working with multiple teams right now, and someone on one of the teams I'm working with, she said, yeah, I've been getting all these emails from people who are just like so thankful for the things that I'm doing to support their team. And she's like, it's so nice to hear these thanks. And I had said to these teams when I was working with them in person a few weeks ago, I said, yeah, you guys catch each other doing things right. Like when someone does something that's helpful, shoot the email off and be like, thank you so much. This really helped me in this certain way. Let them know how that was helpful. And so this woman was telling me, she's like, yeah, I'm getting these emails and it's like, it's so amazing. It's kind of a game changer. It changes the energy of the day to feel like, oh, I did that thing. I went out of my way to be helpful and someone's recognizing it. I'm going to be way more likely to go out of my way to be helpful again next time someone asks, rather than being real annoyed or saying no or, being grumpy about it. The second habit is thanking people generously and in real time. So beyond just saying great job or you got it right, letting people know, thank you so much. That was really helpful. I really appreciate you. And not saving gratitude for big moments or just for performance reviews. It's really saying thank you for small things in everyday interactions in front of others. And so when someone does something in a group environment, or when you have the opportunity to thank someone in a group environment, to do that. So, maybe you're presenting something and someone on the team helped you with one of the assets in the presentation, to be able to say, and I just want to take a moment to thank so-and-so for helping with this component. So thanking people in real time when they do something for you, and then thanking them in front of other people. It sets a really strong positive emotional tone and helps people feel like they matter and that they're part of the bigger picture. So not just catching people doing things right and recognizing like you did a great job on that, but also thanking people when they've been helpful or when you've seen them be helpful to someone else. It doesn't even have to be something that impacted you. It can be, hey, I saw you doing this thing for someone else or for the team, and here was the impact to that. And thank you so much. The third communication hack here is tying your feedback to things that people care about. So whether you're giving great feedback or you're asking people to maybe, try again and maybe they missed the mark a bit, maybe you're giving some constructive feedback, to tie it to something that person cares about, and also tie it to something that's collectively meaningful. So instead of giving criticism, pointing out, hey, I know that it's really important. I know that collaboration is really important to you. And so can I share something that might strengthen what we're working on together? Or, hey, I know that it's really important to you to do a good job. And I see something here that you missed that I think you might want to know about, because I know, I know you want to get it right from the beginning. So tying the feedback that you want to give to something that's important to them, to a value. And so if you know that, doing great work is a value, if you know that, having great presence is a value, if you know that looking capable and being consistent and, if excellence or integrity are values, like being able to lean into those things and say, hey, because I know this is a value, I wanted to just point this out because I thought you would want to know. Or if I were you, I would want to know. I would want someone. It's like when someone has something in their teeth and you don't say anything. It's like, no, if I had something in my teeth, I'd want someone to tell me. So I'm going to tell you. So making sure that you're connecting feedback to something that they care about. And then also to what is collectively meaningful, pointing out, hey, I want to make sure that how this piece that you're working on for this project turns out is really great, because I know that when we turn this in, we all want to feel like we're turning in our best work. Or I know that when we see the impact of this project roll out, that we all want to feel really proud of it, or that we all want to make sure that, we got to shine in our greatest gifts, or whatever the thing is. So it's not just connecting to their values themselves, but also connecting to what is collectively meaningful in this project, in this moment. Being able to connect it to, hey, I know that, here's how this matters to all of us, and here's how we all get to win together. And I want to make sure that you feel like you get to win in the same way that the rest of us will. So being able to tie it to something collective as well. The fourth communication hack or communication habit here is to say people's names and use them intentionally. This was something I was such a stickler on when I had my gym. I wanted all my trainers to be able to call out everyone by name when they were teaching classes. And I always said, like, my goal in every class was to call out every single person by name and give labeled praise at least one time per class. And so whether I had 4 people in class or 40 people in class, I wanted to be able to say, Mary, Mary, I see your jumping jacks over there. Like, I love it. Steve, I saw your push-ups. They look amazing. Being able to give people labeled praise using their name makes people feel like they're part of something. It makes people feel like they are in the family, right? Whether or not, I know there's different views of equating family and work environments, but it's a way of making people feel included. And if someone has a name that's hard to pronounce, going out of your way to ask them, like, hey, it's really important to me that I get names right. Sometimes I need to practice a little bit. Can you remind me how to say your name? Also, if I get it wrong, please come tell me. I do this all the time. And it's wild to me how grateful people are when I say, hey, I want to make sure I get your name right. I might mess it up once or twice. Please always feel free to correct me. Or, don't be offended if I ask you again. But I think names are really important. And when I say that to people, especially people who have names that are harder for people to remember, or maybe are not as common, I get so much gratitude where people say, oh my gosh, like, people just don't call me by name. People just don't acknowledge me by name. They just like blow past me, because people don't want to take the time to make it a little uncomfortable for themselves to remember how to say it correctly. They don't want to be wrong. They don't want to embarrass themselves. They don't want to embarrass the other person. So then they just never call someone by name. So learning how to say people's names, using people's names really intentionally, people will feel more valued, more connected. Using names at the beginning of a conversation, when you're affirming someone, bringing it back to them in discussion, signals that you're paying attention, that you appreciate them, that you are engaged, that you are really in the moment with them, and that they feel like they are the most important thing to you in that moment. The next communication hack that I want to invite you to be practicing as a habit on a regular basis is when other people are speaking, let them finish speaking. So that's the first part. And then mirror and validate before you go into your response. So what I mean by all of that is when you are, whether it's in a meeting or in a one-on-one, a group, a larger team meeting or a one-on-one environment, letting people finish speaking. And I say this for myself as much as for anyone else, because I always have a lot of thoughts in my head that I want to get out really quickly before I forget them. And it's really easy for me to cut people off. I have to try really hard to let people finish. I have to be very intentional about that. It's part of my ADHD. It's part of my extroversion. So letting people finish before you start speaking, and then reflecting and validating what they're saying before you give your response. So what that looks like, and I do this a lot when I'm interviewing people for the podcast, is saying, like letting someone finish what they're saying and then saying, so it sounds like that was a really frustrating experience. What I'm hearing you say is blah, 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 blah. And then going into that, what I was thinking of when you were talking about that, or how I want to respond to that is, but you're mirroring back what you heard. You're validating their experience. You're checking in. Like, it sounds like that was really frustrating. Do I have that right? It sounds like that was really hard for you. You're making sure that they know that you were first and foremost listening in that interaction, not thinking about what you wanted to say the second they stopped talking. even though maybe you were really carefully thinking about what you wanted to say the second they stopped speaking. When we do this, when we let people finish and then we mirror and validate before responding, we lower defensiveness. People feel held in that moment. And that's often what they need the most. In many cases, people need to get out whatever it is they need to get out more than they need to hear the thing that we have to say. But we get caught up in our little egocentric brains thinking that we have something so important to tell back to them. And sometimes they just need to get the thing out. It's wild to me on coaching calls how sometimes people will come and they will just vent and tell me like big, huge, long stories. And the majority of the session might be them venting about something. And I'll get to the end of the session and feel like, I want to make sure I gave them something really valuable, something that helps them, something that supports them. And oftentimes when we're kind of debriefing, like, where do we go from here? And what did you get out of the session? They're like, I just needed to get it all out. They weren't there for me to fix the problem or for me to tell them what to do next. They just needed a place to get it all out and a place where they could really explain all the details and dig into the backstory and talk about all the layers. That is very helpful and cathartic to people. They aren't always doing that because they want advice back or because they want your ideas or opinions. So being thoughtful about, are you just letting people have a sounding board when they need a sounding board? And then if there's a place where either it's appropriate for you to give feedback, because that's what you're there for, or they've expressed interest in that, then going ahead and doing that and chiming in. And then number 6 is asking a better question either before or instead of giving advice. So we often, myself included, we default to fixing. And I feel like because I'm a coach, I feel like because so much of this is my job to I want to make sure that they are getting what they're paying for. And we go into fixing, and really connection comes from curiosity. And when you ask good questions, people feel seen and they feel like, oh, you want to know more about me. You care enough to sit and listen and ask a great follow-up question, which is a huge skill. So being able to ask someone like, tell me, here's what you shared. I want to hear more about that. Tell me more. Or tell me how that impacted you. Or tell me how you're feeling about it now. Or what feels most important in this whole situation to you? Or what would the best outcome in the situation be for you? Where are you struggling most with this? Asking questions that let them continue to process oftentimes is more supportive than jumping into advice and jumping into fixing. This shows this shows that you want to hold space. It shows that you're being really present for someone, but it also shows that you respect their agency and their autonomy enough to listen without assuming that they want you to fix it. You can always ask too, I'm happy to be a sounding board. I definitely want to listen. Let me know if you want me to, if there's certain advice or support that you want on this, then let me know. Also, if you just want to get it all out, I'm here for that too. And then the seventh tip is to close the loop, following up on things that people share. I have a few friends in my life who are so good at this, and they've actually inspired me to get better at it. So following up on things that people share, big or small, personal or professional, looks like someone says, hey, this weekend I'm going to go on a hike with my next door neighbor and their new puppy. And then they show up at work on Monday and you're like, oh my gosh, how was the hike with the puppy? Like, you remember the thing that they said. You didn't just hear them say that on Friday afternoon and say, okay, great, have a great weekend, and then never return to it. But you remember, oh, they're going on that hike with the new puppy. How was it? Did you take pictures of the puppy? I love puppies. Let me see the picture. Remembering these little things. When I was a trainer, I went to such great lengths as a personal trainer to remember people's partners' names and jobs and what they were doing with their work and kids' names. And if they had grandkids, what were the grandkids' names and what were they doing on the weekend and where were they going on trips, and being able to always be ready with questions when they came in. Part of it is because it made the time go faster for me in terms of on these one-on-one sessions. I'm like, if I have to stand next to this person while they're walking on the treadmill for 15 minutes as a warm-up, I want to have something to talk to them about. But it went such a long way in building really strong relationships, and relationships that carried me so far. There's so many of my personal training clients that I have been in touch with for decades now because I built this strong foundation of following up on the little things that matter, sending people a text when it's their birthday, shooting off that email that's like, hey, I know you're doing that tough thing today. I just wanted to let you know I'm thinking of you. You got this. Where does that where can that follow up and closing the loop happen more frequently? And do you have systems in place to help you with it? Because when we're really busy, it's easy to overlook those things. And so I know for me, I try to put birthdays on my calendar, and I'm not great at remembering everyone's birthday, but there's a certain handful of people in my life that I definitely want to remember their birthdays. And I don't pay attention to what date it is every day when I wake up. So I have them on my calendar repeating every year so that first thing in the morning on that morning, every year, I get a reminder that's like, hey, it's so-and-so's birthday. Even for my mom, whose birthday I know, but I'm not remembering every day of October, what day we're on. But I certainly don't want to miss my mom's birthday. So those little things go such a long way. And I shouldn't say a birthday is a little thing. It's a bigger thing. But other little things. I have friends who I swear they put notifications on their calendar for when I'm doing certain things. So I have one friend, anytime she knows I'm doing a speaking thing, she will text me by 6 a.m. that morning and be like, you're going to kill it today. I can't wait to hear all about it. Every time. And I'm like, does she put reminders on her calendar? How did she wake up and remember this? I have another friend who every time she knows I'm traveling for something, she'll send me a message like, hey, have a great time doing, whatever it is you're going to go do. And again, I'm like, did she put a reminder in her phone? Text Sarah about she's going to California today. So where are there places where you could put some systems in place to remind you to have those interactions, to close those loops? I had a mentor for years who was every morning, he said he would wake up and text 3 people and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you, and something that was relevant to the last week or two, some interaction that he'd had with them, just some quick follow-up. But it helped him stay in consistent touch with people. It helped him show people that he cared. It also helped him focus on something outside of himself first thing in the morning, knowing that he was bringing a little bit of brightness to someone else. So where can you be consistently following up, closing the loop with people, and doing something that is massively underused in leadership? Most leaders don't do this. Most leaders are not doing this as a little step. And it's one of those steps that goes a really long way when you remember those details, when you remember those special things. So when you're thinking about how can you integrate these things, pick 1 or 2 of these and practice them more routinely. Pick in low stakes environments where you can kind of practice this new, if this feels new to you, if it feels more friendly and more warm than you're used to, especially in a professional environment, where can you practice this in low stakes ways to just kind of try it on like a new outfit? I'm going to be, I'm wearing a new kind of pants today. I'm wearing a new kind of tennis shoe or a new kind of heel. Where can I try this on and see how it feels and see what kind of a response I get, and then integrate it into more consistent environments. When we do these kinds of things, we get to build connection a little bit at a time, and connection is not built in just one big moment. It's not built on someone's first interaction with you. First impression goes a long way, yes, but in those micro moments that follow over and over and over again, that's how connection is built and sustained over the long haul, and that's how you build a relationship that people will remember you by. So thinking through, how are you building in those little micro moments every single day? And then recognizing how that allows you to build trust. These are trust building behaviors. And so when we're communicating in these ways, you are building a little bit of trust. You're getting a little bit of trust in the bank every single time you do these kinds of things. So how do these communication habits build trust, safety, and belonging? They help reduce defensiveness and increase psychological safety. So if I'm doing these kinds of things, if I'm catching people doing the right thing, I'm saying thank you to people, I'm checking in, how was your walk with the puppy over the weekend? I'm doing all these kinds of things. Then when I have to say, hey, I have some feedback on something, people are not with their armor up, ready to get mad and be defensive. Instead, they're like, oh, we've had 80 positive interactions this week. This one little thing, no big deal. So building that goodwill over time goes a long way when you need to then have the rougher conversation. You have that trust and safety in place so that people can let their guard down. And when you come to them with something where you need them to listen in a more complicated or layered way, they are able to hear you and recognize that you're not devaluing them in that moment. With that, they will feel more confident to take risks. They will feel more confident to be creative. They will feel more confident to go all in on the work that they're doing. And that goes a really long way. That's what happens in trusting environments. So you want people to stop protecting themselves so that they can really participate more fully. The second way this builds trust and safety and belonging is that these habits build consistency, and consistency is foundational to trust. Again, people will trust you based on what you've done most recently and frequently. So when you are doing these kinds of behaviors over and over, and it's what people know of you in recent and frequent history, then they understand what they're going to get from you. They understand that they understand what the stakes are, what the risks are, and they know how you're going to show up, or they can predict how you're going to show up, which means that if they're in a vulnerable spot, they can come to you instead of talking about it behind your back, instead of, not asking a clarifying question and then totally going about a project completely in the wrong way. They can come to you and ask that clarifying question because they know how you're going to show up. They've seen you show up a million times over again. They're not worried that, oh my gosh, what if it all blows up in my face? The third way this builds trust, safety, and belonging is that these kinds of communication habits reinforce to the person you're communicating with that they matter to you and that they matter in this environment, that you want to hold space for them, that you want to see them succeed, that you want to see them win, that you are not in this space for you to win alone. You're in this space for you to win together. And so you are here to support them, that you don't see them as invisible or interchangeable, that you see them as someone whose value is inherently contributing to the greater good of this environment, and that it matters to you that they are one of the people in this environment, not that anyone is filling the space that they're in, but that they are the person that fills this space. So that becomes a sense of belonging and sense of mattering, which is core to connection and belonging, and feeling like someone matters somewhere allows them to feel like they want to be there, right? They want to keep showing up. And then the fourth way that these habits contribute to trust, safety, and belonging is that this allows you to turn feedback into partnership instead of something that feels scary, intimidating, dangerous, threatening. It feels like partnership. So when you do have to go to someone and say, hey, can you work on this thing, or you missed the mark on this? People can detach that from their worth and they can connect it to, oh, this person's trying to help me get better. Oh, this person is trying to make sure that we all do a great job here. Oh, this person is here to help me and support me and guide me. And I'm so glad that they're here, rather than, how dare you come and tell me this thing that I messed up on? So it stops that person's sense of judgment, maybe their self-judgment, but also their perception of judgment from you. And they can shift from what might have previously felt like defensiveness and judgment into support and care, which feels totally different. So instead of it feeling like, oh, I'm being evaluated here, it feels like we're working towards something together. And when we're working on things, oftentimes we have to pivot, or we have to make a change, or we have to correct something. And that's just no big deal. That's just part of working together. So that starts to really build a shift in terms of needing things to be perfect all the time, needing things to be all tied up. And instead, we're all iterating and collaborating and working and fixing and, improving things as we go all the time. So remembering that building trust and safety and building these communication habits, it's not through big, grand, one-time gestures. It's building little, tiny, small moments in the course of the day, over the course of weeks and weeks, over the course of months and months, over the course of many interactions, one-on-one interactions, team interactions, interactions via email, via text, if you're texting, or Slack or Teams, via seeing people in the hall, and all these interactions that are adding up, stacking up over time and adding to that bank of goodwill over time, so that that relationship is built on something that is meaningful and layered and connected and interwoven, and that it all works together, rather than it feeling like it's, one component of a relationship that's on this very faulty wall that as soon as there's a crack detected, it could all crumble or all fall apart. I hope this episode was helpful. I hope that you have a better understanding and more optimism around how impactful it can be when people recognize how you consistently make them feel. when you consistently make people feel welcome and included and safe and trust, like they can trust you, that will determine how they work with you. That will determine how they work with the team. The best feedback I got when I was leading teams in multiple businesses of mine was gratitude for how I showed up and engaged with my team members, how I gave them feedback in terms of what I saw them doing well, and how I also shared feedback from things I heard from other people in front of other people. So consistently recognizing, honoring, acknowledging other people was something I always went out of my way to do. And it's the thing that people repeatedly came to me and thanked me for. And it was also the thing that people repeatedly came to me and said they had never had other bosses do for them. So thinking about how can you help people feel seen over and over and over again in these little ways that go a long way in the long run. So share this episode out with other leaders in your space. Let me know how this episode impacted you, what you're going to put into action. I can't wait to be back with you next week. And until then, know that I am in this with you always. Thank you for allowing me to spend time in your ear today. If you liked this episode, be sure to subscribe to this channel. To learn more about my speaking, training, and coaching services, visit saradean.com. That's SARADEAN. I would also love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn at saradean.com/LinkedIn or on Instagram at saradeanspeaks. I love hearing from my listeners. Thank you for showing up for yourself today. I see you, I hear you, and I'm holding space for you today and every single day.